Hi everybody, welcome to the show. We call it the Court of Public Opinion, but it is a show. I hope it brings some, thought-provoking facts. A lot of the stuff I talk to you about on a daily basis, it's in the news, might be on your mind, close to your heart, getting under your skin, annoying the hell out of you. Good to talk about these things and not let them slide. And before we get on to anything else, Pete reminds me, we're talking about Lydia Thorpe and her outburst in front of the strip joint in Melbourne at 3 o'clock in the morning. Lydia Thorpe, it made every news bulletin around the country, her behaviour. I mean, unforgivable stuff. But Pete points out and reminds me, the ABC did not run it. No comment from the ABC. Beyond belief. April 20th, before we get into stuff, what can I tell you about the day? 1611, the first known performance of Shakespeare's tragedy Macbeth. That's at the Globe Theatre. 1611. I don't know, I never got Shakespeare. I suppose it's most unfashionable and most unerudite to say that. Maybe it's because it's stuffed down our throats at school. I don't know. 1918, Manfred von Richthofen, otherwise known as the Red Baron. He shoots down his 79th and his 80th, two in one day, victims, making his final victories, or marking his final victories, before his death the following day, which is, of course, mired in all kinds of controversy as to how he died and who shot him. It ranges from an Australian soldier with a .303 to somebody with a Lewis gun. I don't know. Nobody knows. But he was quite a remarkable aviator and a very brave person. 1912, Bram Stoker, Irish theatre manager, later an author, wrote a thing called Dracula, dies at the age of 64. 1912. George Bolton wins the world's first motor race on a steam-powered quadcycle. A test was organised by a French newspaper to see if any of these newfangled cars could run quickly. 1887, on this very day, the birthday of motor racing. Captain James Cook, 1770, he arrives in New South Wales. That was 1770. And the day before, yes, the day before was when he first sighted the mainland. But this is the day he arrives in New South Wales. Well, it wouldn't have been called New South Wales, of course. Online streaming, Netflix, suffers a first subscriber loss in a decade. 200,000 customers jumped ship. Wonder why? Wonder what happened? What were they showing? Wonder what offended people? 2022 was the year, just last year. Adolf Hitler, Austrian-born German dictator and Führer, born in Austria-Hungary, 1889. The first pasteurization test completed by Louis Pasteur, 1862. Pasteurized milk. NASA's civilian pilot Neil Armstrong takes the X-15 or the Bell X-15 to 63,250 meters. That was in 1962. George Harrison sings the Lumberjack song with Monty Python in New York City. I'm a lumberjack. Okay. That was 1975. Jessica Lange, King Kong, American actress, born 1949. 1979, Jimmy Carter is attacked by a swamp rabbit, which swam up and jumped in his fishing boat in Plains, Georgia. in 1979, the day that a rabbit attacked a president. Okay, and one more. 2018, Commonwealth countries decide Prince Charles will succeed Queen Elizabeth as the next head of the Commonwealth. And if you remember the day, or it's an important day, it was going to be a really nice one. Here's a fun fact. Australia is the second most reluctant country in the world to use cash. Only 6% of us carry on transactions involving cash. It's all tap and go, everything. The more people are using tap and go, you've got probably more people using their iPhones, their smartphones to pay for things. Now, I can't even begin to imagine how that works. Take out your phone, it can do absolutely everything, your phone. Scary. The only trouble is we need electricity to charge it, and we mustn't lose it. And we must remember our combination. The Aboriginal elder from the Tiwi Islands, now he didn't make a lot of the news, but it certainly caught my eye and my interest, because what he had to say as a personal contribution, he is an elder, a very respected man in his community. His contribution to this voice debate I found very interesting. This is what he said. This is supposed to be our voice, yet no one has spoken to us in our community at all. Goes on to say, it looks to me like we are the window dressing, a way to legitimize their decisions that we have had no say whatsoever in making. This voice is going to be made to seem very collective, very inclusive, very democratic, but the voice these people want has nothing to do with us. Now that's a gentleman from a community, albeit a remote community, who is quite eloquent, and I think hits the point. As I've said to you before, I think the voice thing is a Trojan horse. Don't let it in. And, oh yes, I have another letter from the new, she's just been appointed, Minister for Indigenous Affairs, Senator Jacinta Price. Now, when I say I have, she didn't send me the letter. This was addressed to Pete. Let me read it to you quickly. Dear Peter, this is the bombshell Albo tried to hide. But now it's out and every Australian needs to hear it before voting on this divisive voice. You know how the PM keeps saying that the voice is a modest change to the Constitution? Well, the real agenda behind his voice referendum has finally been revealed. Secret government documents the National Indigenous Australians Agency was forced to release under Freedom of Information laws say this: any voice to Parliament should be designed so that it could support and promote a treaty-making process. And what is the treaty? The Senator asks. According to these secret documents, it must include a fixed percentage of gross national product. The whites will pay rates, land taxes and royalties. The document explains a treaty could include a proper say in decision-making, the establishment of a truth commission, reparations, a financial settlement, such as seeking a percentage of GDP, the resolution of land, water and resources, recognition of authority and customary law. Separate countries. The recognition of customary law, that's their law. This is a direct quote from the secret voice document. Australia got a whole country for nothing. They haven't begun to pay for it yet. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if that does not put the fear of God into you, I don't know what will. Senator, I think, as the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, and it's a longer letter, so I might hold off and do more of it tomorrow. But thank you for sending it to Pete, because it would come to me. Now, for around 2 years, I think, Pete might be able to correct me. How long have we been doing the Court of Public Opinion?
Oh, about 14, 15 months, I think.
Yeah, 14, 15 months. I've been talking about the problems surrounding the unaffordable, the scammed, the inefficient, the unsustainable, and the extravagant NDIS. Thank you, Julia Gillard. Originally at a cost of $20 billion a year, it is now $34 billion a year. Totally out of control and rorted. A disgrace. This is what Labor Senator Don Farrell said in Parliament a couple of months ago. The NDIS has been infiltrated by organised major crime. Now, this is your money and my money. I'll read you this as the latest. I was fascinated to see that Senator Shorten was at the Press Club luncheon yesterday. I guess he had to do something when this came up. Criminal syndicates using cash vouchers and gifts to steal NDIS funds. The scale of fraud being detected in the NDIS is much worse than expected, as the federal government considers ways to rein in the costs of this unaffordable scheme. Sophisticated criminal syndicates are using cash vouchers and gifts in an attempt to steal disability entitlements from the National Disability Insurance Scheme. The scale of the fraud detected being much, much worse than previously expected, which tells me that somebody expected it to be rorted anyway. The unprecedented rates of fraud come as the federal government's considering ways to rein in the soaring costs of the scheme, with NDIS Minister Bill Shorten set to float a number of changes ahead of the May 9 budget, which will address over-servicing and fraud within the scheme. It's a bit late, Senator. I mean, if I've been talking about this for 15 months, for God's sake. The NDIS Fraud Task Force, they even have a fraud task force, created in October last year. So you've known about it at least that long. Now has 38 active investigators and investigations looking into almost $300 million of payments, $300 million or more under review, an increase of $50 million from 3 months ago. The task force is investigating multiple criminal syndicates which have previously not been on the radar, with some handling tens of millions of dollars of NDIS funds every day. Ladies and gentlemen, the Labor government at work. They should just bloody well hang their heads in shame. Now let me talk to you about literacy. I know from time to time they try to look at, but not in a terribly coordinated way, the business of reading and writing, basic literacy. Well, it's a big problem. They've now decided to put a figure on it. They say 1 person in 5 is practically illiterate, cannot really function. That's about 3 million people we're talking about. 3 million people. How did that happen? It's another indicator of a failed education system, which all started, of course, when they did away with teaching kids to read by sounding out the words. You know, is for apple and all of that stuff. That's how I did it. Admittedly, I didn't do it terribly well. But sounding out the words, phonics, is the way you teach people to read, not the recognition of... But anyway, what I'm saying is they got it all wrong. They haven't apologized. They won't apologize, of course. They have failed to do simple things like correct homework, to give kids, you know, a spelling list. Here are the 10 words to take home tonight to learn. I would have imagined all those basics should never have been tampered with, because they have been in place successfully for so many centuries. But all these newfangled ideas, they try them. I don't mind people trying new ideas, but when they don't work, have the decency to apologize and go back to the system that actually worked and delivered results. And while you're doing that, you might reinstate discipline and respect for authority in the classrooms. You know, forget about all of the newfangled political correctness and all the woke stuff which must take up so much of your time. I saw sadly that there were 3 savage dog attacks in 1 week. Now they all involved dogs one could argue should not be in the suburban situation. I think there was one bull mastiff, was an Alsatian. But whether they're in a suburban situation or not, they certainly shouldn't be around small children. I love dogs. I've always had dogs around me. But if you do have big dogs, they have the potential to do more harm if they do bite you, and particularly if you're talking small children. But Pete, you've got a border collie.
Yes.
And she is the most loving, gentle.
She's an angel.
She is an angel. She is an angel. But, you know, big and enthusiastic and loving. I read somewhere that the most dangerous breed was the red setter. I've never heard of a red setter attacking anybody. But you know what they say about you give a dog a bad name and you may as well shoot it. But certainly bull mastiffs and Rhodesian ridgebacks and certain guard dogs, which have, I think, maybe had a certain...
Pit bulls.
And pit bulls. Pit bulls, yep. They've had sort of something of an aggressiveness almost bred into them. Now, they have no place around children, really. But you could argue, and I don't know whether Pete would agree, that it's not always the dog, but the owner.
I do agree.
Yeah, the owner should take some of the responsibility for that pain and suffering, those 3 serious dog attacks. Anyway, we'll talk tomorrow, end of the week. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton is with me, the voice of, well, I hope the voice of common sense. We'll be back tomorrow. Believe in yourself, and goodbye for now.